Thank you for being here. I wish you could look out over this room and see yourselves. What a group. I know that
housing will stay anchored
maybe I'm
in the
supposed to sit down.
transformational vision of the Jubilee year for as long as we know how.
We'll give them a second. I think we're going to run a still loop here in a second, but we'll see if that works out. Again, nothing is more important in our lives than our time and where we choose to spend it. And when you give of your time as you have this morning, we are super grateful and we hope you are rewarded for it. All right, so here goes. Some of you know that we recently hosted the acclaimed artist and justice activist John Legend for a visit. Did you catch those photos? You may not know that John has a foundation called Human Level, and he is collaborating with the Brookings Institute to launch their new Center for Community Uplift. We were asked to help make connections between on-the-ground housing practices and the larger policy implications needed to create wide-scale well-being. Tim, if I had known you were going to invite us to do the aquaponics coffee game, I would have said, listen for the word well-being. You're going to hear that word a lot. Boom. So I'd like to share with you a few of the things that we shared with John and his team. After years of studying the effects of discrimination and inequity in our cities, Dr. Andre Perry at Brookings, who opened this new center, believes that personal well-being is the best way to measure the condition of our communities. Well-being, you ask, what is that? Is how people feel and how they function, both on a personal and a social level. And it's how they feel about their lives as a whole. So well-being, that's the thing we're thinking about. So from a housing policy perspective, when our focus is on well-being, we locate affordable housing in resource-rich neighborhoods with high-performing schools and access to transportation and nutritious food, and the list goes on and on. We co-locate services and amenities on-site, like after-school programming, arts centers. These policy choices improve life function for residents. And we do it with attention to beauty and safety so that residents can feel good in their homes. I would tell you that this is an approach that creates ecosystems for thriving. It corrects for decades of discriminatory actions, replacing them with life-giving practices. It creates well-being and thriving for people and communities. Instead of redlining, we're talking about greenlining people into opportunity. Amen? If you've been in the Jubilee community for very long, you know that we call that justice housing. If you hadn't just clapped, I would say, right? So this was one of our main messages for John and the team. We were proud to share how we were doing this in partnership with Jubilee residents, with district government, with banks and investors, with architects and contractors, and so many of you who are here in the room celebrating with us. But well-being is more likely when we have what we need, when we have the building blocks for life. But if we're honest, resources and opportunities alone don't guarantee well-being. There is another crucial dimension that is deeper than our external environment. It lies within each one of us. It's an internal energy that we each need to catalyze our fullness. Gregory Boyle, some of you know, the founder of Homeboy Industries, the biggest gang rehabilitation and reentry program in the world in LA, understands the connection between feelings and function. With me, feelings and function. He says that we are all made with infinite goodness that cannot be undone. No matter what happens in life, when we are connected to our own goodness, we'll act from it We'll live out of that goodness. But many times we lose our way when the pain and trauma of life separate us from that sense of goodness. Bumping up against pain over and over has a profound impact. I'm going to share something from my own life. For many years, my wife and I were struggling to have children. After a long period of disappointment, we finally succeeded, and we finally conceived. The joy, I should say Wendy did, the joy and excitement we felt were uncontainable. But a few months before our daughter was due, Wendy went into premature labor, and it was too early for Addison to survive. The loss was suffocating. We could barely breathe for a long time. Sometime later, we were pregnant again, this time with twins. We summoned the courage to get excited again and be ready for those two new lives, only to experience the worst deja vu of our lives. Premature labor again. This time only a few short days before they would be able to survive. Friends, holding those babies, knowing that they would not be able to live on, remains among the hardest things I've ever experienced. In a very real way, in those moments, I didn't care if I was made of infinite goodness or not. Life felt meaningless, and over time, our hearts were hardened, calloused, to try not to feel the pain. This is what happens to all of us at some point. Maybe you're thinking of a moment in your life. The effects of trauma can bruise us and eventually lead to a hardened heart. And that makes it hard to feel our inherent goodness, that purpose we were created for. The buildup of this trauma can be such a block that no amount of external resources can help us through it. You with me? So the prophet Ezekiel addressed this condition with the people of his day. Speaking on behalf of Yahweh, he said, I will give you a new heart. I will remove your heart of stone and replace it with a heart of flesh. Isn't that a wonderful promise? I remember feeling like it would never happen for me. What can actually soften us? What can make us ready again to feel that goodness? I want to submit to you, back to Greg Boyle, that this is about experiencing being cherished. It's not a word you hear all that often. You need to be cherished by someone and someone's often enough and deeply enough. He says that when that happens, it can rewrite our brain chemistry. We begin to know in an unshakable way that we are good enough as we are. It softens our hearts, and we learn to act from the bottomless goodness that is in us. Friends, there is no action, no condition that is beyond the redemptive experience of being cherished. Loving and being loved can lead us out of whatever impasse we're in. I found these words recently. When love touches suffering, the suffering turns love into mercy. Isn't that lovely? So, back to the tour. John met Damien that day, who had returned home from incarceration in 2021. By then, Damien had experienced more than his share of trauma. While living in our reentry home, Damien's heart was softened by the love and support of his community, and especially from the unconditional love of his wife, who was his greatest ally. As he came to recognize the unending goodness in him, he began to rebuild life. Functional progress followed. Employment, savings, a move to his own Jubilee apartment, and then some months later, he joined our staff, and now he is leading other men on that same path from prison to well-being. Friends, this is what justice housing looks like. Hearts of flesh planted in an ecosystem ripe with resources, calling on each other to experience well-being together. I'm going to give this to Dr. Perry at no charge. Feeling plus function equals well-being. All right, I'm going to bring this to the end. Jubilee is in the midst of doubling. You've heard that a few times. You'll see a little bit more about that as we go. Last year, we added 3 properties, totaling 165 homes, increasing the number that we operate to 460. There are 5 more properties under development that will total another 170 homes. A few more than the last time we were here, Myra. 50 of those will lease up at the end of the year in the project we call UCAL. More than half are family-size homes. Calorama will also be home to Sitar next door, where Maureen Dwyer and her team will be rolling out that new program. Ontario Place and KEB will serve men and women coming home from incarceration and will include, get your coffees ready, an aquaponics farm, and a community kitchen. 1800 Columbia Road, recently given to us by Truist Bank and Evelyn and her team, will include a restored community plaza alongside 50 new homes right there in the gateway to Adams Morgan. Friends, these developments will offer a pathway to well-being for hundreds of people in the years to come. They will be part of an ecosystem that offers the functional resources that we need and that we hope and pray with all our energy will be bathed in an ethic of cherishing. Help each person know that bottomless goodness inside. We need your support again and again. When we invest our hearts into someone else's well-being, we become part of their ecosystem of caring. As you join with us, you help us cherish each new person who is coming out of difficult circumstances. In so doing, your heart is made well too. I want to thank you for listening.